Welcome to A Dose of Feel Good. I'm your host, Whitney Bischoff, and today we are talking about Future You is Proud. You can see full show notes at doseoffeelgood.my.canva.site. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Dose of Feel Good as we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the podcast and bringing you 3 episodes being dropped this week. And the second of our series is titled Future You is Proud. And speaking of pride, I think it fits right into celebrating all of the beautiful things that I know I've learned on this podcast journey, especially, in the thick of it when I'm like, why am I doing this? Is anyone even listening to the messages that I'm putting out into the world? And I think, looking back now that I'm in the future, if you will, I'm so proud of myself for staying consistent, for, I think, sharing messages that really speak to me. And I think if I've learned anything on this journey, it's that, what impacts the most is what I feel like I need at any given time. And I'm going to continue on that journey of what do I need? What is really speaking to me, and to do it honestly for no one else but myself. And I think that's what we're talking about, is that the future version of me is going to be very thankful that I'm sticking to that, and just being able to see all of the immense impact, which just makes me so proud. And I think sometimes it's weird to say out loud that we're proud of ourselves. So I'm going to lead by example and really lean into that. So if you haven't said out loud that you are proud of yourself, that's going to be step 1 that I want you to do today. But our topic, Future You is Proud. What do we mean by that? Well, I think sometimes, depending on where you are, we can feel stuck in the current version of ourselves that we've created, whatever that looks like, whether that's professionally, whether that's personally, whether that's in our relationships, in a variety of things. We can feel stuck. We can get, I think, caught in this loop of monotony of what is the point of all of this? And I know, at least for myself, I'm always yearning for more and better and bettering myself. And I think then I can really get stuck in, I live in small town South Dakota, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Is what I'm doing really mattering? And so I think when you have that stuck feeling, it can feel like quicksand. And what I mean by that is the more that we fight to get out, the more steps that we're taking, which is, I think, maybe counterintuitive, that I'm taking this step, I'm doing the things, but it can feel then that we're sinking deeper into it because we don't see those outcomes. We don't see them right away. And so we get further sunk in to that stuck feeling. And so when we're in the midst of it, when we're in the midst of whether it's a fight that you're battling, or maybe it's choices that you're making and you're like, why do I continue to make these choices? Or why do I continue to make the steps in this direction if I'm not seeing the outcomes that I'm looking for? Or even the midst of a healing process, if you're in that season, which is its own can of worms, which we will get into on a different day. If you're in the midst of setting boundaries, that can be very difficult. Or even in the midst of trying to either forgive yourself or forgive others, if you're in the middle of any of those things, it can feel close to impossible to work through those. That's where we get stuck. Because it's hard. I am not going to be naive here and tell any of you that when you're in the midst of it, when you're in that stuck feeling, that it's easy, that we can just turn it off and all of a sudden be like, oh, I feel great, and we're just going to charge forward, because that's not what this podcast is about. Again, it's not about this toxic positivity, but what it is about is the encouragement in the midst of those seasons. So I think when we're stuck in that place, it can really break us down to what I like to kind of envision is like our most raw, real, authentic self. And sometimes we have to go through all of those things, whether that is the fight, whether that is the steps that we're not seeing progress, the healing journey, the boundaries, the forgiveness, those hard things, like all of those then combined, if we're trying to do all of that at once, like we are broken down to our most raw version. The reality, though, and I think the positive piece, the empowerment, if you will, is that we have to take those steps today. We have to trust ourselves that we can get to the future version of us that we want to be if we continue to take those steps, because the outcomes, we will get there. It's really hard when we're stuck in those moments, but that version of us is there. The free, beautiful, full of life version that we are so worthy and capable of. And we owe it to ourselves to know that the future version of us is going to be proud of sticking through the stuck moments, to getting through that. And I think that is such a cool reality or way to look at it, that, feeling really stuck is that I am capable of getting to a more beautiful version of my life that I'm yearning for. And the steps that I'm taking to get there are going to produce that outcome. I just got to keep working through that, right? Even if I feel like I'm sinking further. Like, I just need to take one step at a time and I will get to that beautiful version of myself that I'm worthy of. And I think to show this as a story, and I know I've mentioned this a variety of times, but I think people can relate to, if you're in, I'm going to say a toxic work environment. It can also be, though, I think any toxic environment, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's a friendship, whether that's work, any of those pieces. I remember for myself being in the midst of that, and I've said this many times, that I would show up every day and I would fight. And what I mean by that is I would pour everything into this job because I loved it. And I was convinced that if I just gave more of myself, that I could fix a system that maybe wasn't ready to be fixed. But I wanted to change things so badly. So I showed up, I fought the fight, I was taking the steps. But what I was missing was my own healing journey, and how and why was I giving up parts of myself in that space? So that balance. And when I left that space, I finally was like, this isn't my fight to give anymore. And I was okay with that. But I remember being at my absolute lowest. Like, my identity was almost tied to that entire environment. And I was so stuck wondering, like, what is the next step? What is the point of it all? And being in the middle of that, never in a million years would I have thought, oh, the future version of myself is going to one day look back at me being strong enough, being powerful enough to leave this situation and look back and say, you are worthy of more. Never in a million years in the middle of that. Now I look back and I'm like, the future version of you is going to celebrate, even though being in the middle of that is so incredibly difficult. And I think what's wild looking back is that because my purpose and identity was so tied up in that, I was just sitting in it when I left. Like, I was completely blind to the fact that there was a future version of me that would actually be okay. I really did not think at the time that I was going to be okay. But not only okay, but a future version of me that's actually better. And when I'm talking about a beautiful life that you can't even dream of, that's the life I'm living now. And there's no way that I would have thought that when I was in the midst of that. But I now trust myself to take the risk to leave if I'm like, I can't do this anymore. That the future version of me is going to be waiting on the other side to celebrate, to kind of wrap me in her arms and hug me beyond what I've ever dreamed is possible, because I am worthy of it. I am possible. And I love that I now know I'm capable of that. Which I think that can be relatable to any toxic space that we fight and we fight and we fight and we give. And at some point, we have to take a step back and know that there is a future version of ourselves that knows that we are worthy of so much more. But I think the impact of really recognizing that there is a future version of us that is proud of where we're going is that we often don't connect those dots because we limit our potential. We don't give ourselves the credit that we so rightly deserve for fighting that fight, and oftentimes fighting that fight for a long time. Like, we have done everything within our power, and at the end of the day, it might just be outside of our control, and that's a really hard pill to swallow. And so that might get us to that stuck point. But I think when we start to recognize that there is a future version of us that is already proud of you, especially for every person that relates to being that overcomer, to taking that brave moment of chance, to giving ourselves that grace and thought of consideration of what is possible, that future version of us is going to thank us and remind ourselves that we are so wildly capable and worthy of the life that we have dreamed is possible. It's out there. We just have to take a pause and know that it's just waiting for us to grab it. And I think that's beautiful. And I want to end with, before we get into our call to action for the week, is the reminder that it's really hard to know what the next year's version of you is going to look like. But obviously the choices that we make today are starting to shape that. But there's so much unknown. And so that's where I think sometimes those stuck feelings can come from. And so if we are consistently looking at what does the next year version of me look like, or what would I hope for her to look like, just know that whatever that version looks like, whatever steps you're taking to get there, even if it's just showing up in each day, if that's the capacity that you have to give, that the future version of you is already proud of you for showing up, for giving what you can in the moment, and knowing that there is a beautiful life for you on the other side of it. And if no one's told you lately, I'm proud of you for showing up, for getting there, and for running towards that beautiful life that is waiting for you. So our call to action for this week is that I want you to say out loud that you are proud of yourself every single day. Like, verbalize those words, which I know sounds very silly, but I want you to actually say those words out loud. I say this all the time, that like, we do not hear that someone is proud of us, but we also don't say that to other people enough. But before we're sending that kindness and that positive message out to the world, we need to be telling ourselves that we're proud of ourselves first. So make that a priority. Tell yourself you're proud of yourself. I also want you to give yourself permission to take a chance. If you are in one of those situations where you're like, I have fought the fight, I don't have anything else to give anymore, take a chance, take that risk, and know again that you are worthy of so much more. And that beautiful life that lies ahead of you, it is there. Take that chance for yourself. And the last one, I want you to write down what that full life that you yearn for would look like. What does that actually look like for you? And then the last piece is name one step that you can take to get yourself there. Because like I said, you deserve that beautiful life. And I can say as a full witness here is that it is possible. And I know, like, being able to live in that and live it out, and after everything that I've overcome and experienced, it feels so good to now be able to carry that forward and almost let other people know that they are also very capable of that. Like, I'm always like, if I can do it, if I can overcome and find the light in the world, I promise you that you can too, and you don't have to do it alone. Let's do it together. And I want to be a part of that journey as well. So with that, we're going to wrap up the episode here today. Again, we are celebrating 1 year of Dose of Feel Good. So keep an eye out on our social media. We're doing some giveaways this week. I would love, again, to hear what you have loved over the last year, what you hope to see, and how you are spreading Feel Good into the world around you. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are feeling ready to conquer the week and let your impact ripple out to the world around you. Let's connect on Instagram and Threads at Dose of Feel Good Podcast. If you're loving the podcast, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Until next time, share your own dose of feel good and never underestimate the power of positivity.